mind sharing a bit about yourself and why you'd like to continue serving?
Well, I'm Rick Hudson. I moved here in '69, graduated Georgia Tech in engineering. I have a company in Tulsa and a company in Berthoud, Colorado. We're an engineering-oriented company. I was appointed in 2006 by Mayor Kathy Taylor. I've been on the board ever since then. I've enjoyed it. It's been a real pleasure to work with the TMUA and the RMUA. I'm incoming chairman this coming year.
Wonderful. Does anyone have any follow-up questions?
20 years of service.
Yeah.
Wow. Tremendous.
My wife asked me, why am I doing this? Because it does take, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's
But I have
33
to-
meetings a year.
I have to tell you, it's been a real honor for me to work with the city employees. I had a different idea of what city employees were like before I came down and began to work this staff that we have, and we've had a very good relationship over the years. And so it's been a real honor for me. You know, I'm 82 years old, still play good bridge and still play good blackjack. So I hope I'm not diminished.
No.
But I'm happy to serve another 4 years if you'd
Thank
like.
you for your service.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are you part of the National Bridge League? This is relevant, I swear. It's not, but. No, but do you do like the National Bridge League stuff? I was just
I
curious.
just play online.
Oh, that's good. My grandma was banned from it, just a fun fact. For cheating. Just a quick fun family talk. Is there anything, out of curiosity, given your longitudinal service, is there anything you think we should know or be focused on when it comes to just city utilities that the council, that you think we should be aware of? You've obviously
Well, the
are
major
really
thing
knowledgeable.
is always, we consider rates and debt. And in fact, we were just in a meeting upstairs talking about bond issues and the fact that we weren't able to have bonds because we didn't properly fund our wastewater treatment due to a consent order, and it affected our ability to raise bonds, and so we had to borrow money at a higher rate from the OWRB. So we're facing an aging, decaying water system and sewer system, and so we need to do everything we can to keep ourselves financially viable. And fortunately, we've been, over 20 years, we've had a good relationship with the city council. You understand our issues, and we worked well together. We want to keep our rates as low as possible, but we must remain, we must provide safe, clean water and dispose of our wastewater correctly. So
Absolutely.
those are our main issues.
Yeah.
And also, we're looking at expansion of Tulsa growing to the east.
No, thanks, that's helpful context. Or I need to learn more about
Spunky
that
Creek.
consent and the wastewater cost. Well, thank you so much. Does anyone have any other questions?
Thank you. Yeah,
That's
thanks
a
for your
long time
service,
to
sir.
serve.
Yes.
So very long.
Thank you for being willing to continue serving and attending so many meetings. It looks like it's almost 3 a month. So we will be voting on this at the June 17th meeting at 5 o'clock. You are welcome to attend, but don't have to. Thank you for being willing to continue serving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
All
very
right.
much.
We are on agenda item 3, rezoning application Z7852 from RS1 to, RS1 with an optional development plan. For a second, I just saw the 2 RS1s. For property located west of the northwest corner of East 119th Street South and South Yale Avenue, requested by Nathan Cross. Council District 8, TMAPC voted unanimously to approve the rezoning with the development plan.
Okay, this is a different type of application. So the story behind why they would go to RS1 with an optional development plan is you have to have private streets are at least initially designated in a development plan. So that's what they needed to do. You have Wind River, let me see if I get this right, Wind River Plaza, I think, no, this is Wind River Plaza to the south, and Wind River Crossing to the west. And it got a little complicated. They worked it out with the neighborhood. This shows it a little. So you have a separate subdivision to the west that had just an emergency gate at the edge, where really the edge of this property is. So, neighborhood can go in and out of it, but, and this developer wanted to add these 2 lots, which he didn't own at the time of the original subdivision, and then have another gate on the far east end of that boundary. So this shows it much better, maybe. So there was gonna be the emergency gate, which the neighborhood was considering putting in a actual gate that people could enter and exit from. And so there would be a gate and a gate. And so they wanted to work through that. They didn't wanna have to go through double gates, and both neighborhoods could utilize it. So after meeting further, they decided to eliminate the gate from Wind River,
From the west one.
from the west
side.
one. I can never remember the names. But anyway, from the west one, which really, for one, it saves the neighborhood money because they all don't have to pay to install a gate there. And they're all gonna utilize the gate further east there on that east line. So we had it continued, and that was really the sticking point. So there were a lot of discussions, and they both agreed on that. And so when you look at a bigger, you can tell, let's do that one. And you can tell this really offers the opportunity for the neighborhood to the west to exit out to the east, and then even the neighborhood to the south to go through that neighborhood to get out on 121st Street. So it offers a lot of extra options that weren't there before. It still has further process in Public Works to go through for the private street, but this is really the initial part of it.
All right, sorry, Counselor Lakin?
And what do we, so is it RS4 to the south?
Let me see that.
So what do we end up with in that box
So,
from a residential standpoint?
so you have 2 homes that already exist.
Mhm. Those go away, or no, they stay there?
Those stay there.
This is just
So
really
that
making
just-
it a private street.
Right,
This all
that's-
has to do with streets and gates.
That's right.
Okay, fine.
And
I didn't know if the houses were gonna come down and be
They're just included now in the private street.
and if anything were to change, if those houses were to go away, then they would still have to be built to RS1 standards unless it was rezoned.
Right.
Yep, okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, we are on agenda item 4, rezoning application Z7861 from RS3 to MX1F35 for property located south of the southeast corner of East Newton Street and North Oswego Avenue, requested by Lease Simon Design. Council District 3, TMAPC voted unanimously to recommend approval.
So this is Sequoia neighborhood, and it's a property a little less than an acre that is really bordered on 2 sides by streets to the east and the west. The request is to go from RS3, which is predominantly the neighborhood zoning district, to a mixed-use district for, I think she's proposing 4 townhomes and really some commercial on the bottom. She's talking about maybe a coffee shop for the neighborhood or something. So it's pretty close to Sequoia Park, a little bit on the edge of the neighborhood to the north. We did have one person from the neighborhood. I'm not sure it was a pure on objection, really just kind of concerns about what this might do from a traffic perspective. But otherwise, it was, we really didn't have much comment about it.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about it. Opposition.
Right.
I've heard about it, but not opposition. So I think that's a good use of the land myself.
And this is, when we get to that point, this is in the proposed neighborhood infill overlay, so that would line up with what could happen there in the future.
Well, they really need that there. A coffee shop would be fantastic.
Manifesting.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Okay, thank you so much. We are on agenda item 5, ordinance amending the fiscal year 25-26 budget to make supplemental appropriations of $106,500 from unappropriated fund balance within the PD Equitable Sharing Justice Subfund, Frontline Leadership Training Academy, and annual facilitation of the Mayor's Police and Community Coalition.
Good morning, councillors. Reece Williams with grants. Jared's out today, so unfortunately you stuck with me. So hopefully I can answer any questions you have.
Unfortunately, it's correct. Just kidding.
These are funds that come from seizures that the DOJ have, that then a portion of it comes back to the city. So 75,000 is going to be used for frontline leadership training academy, which is a coalition between Tulsa, Wichita, Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma police departments. It's going to take place over 3 weeks, and there's going to be 10 people from each police force on that leadership program. And then the other one is the Mayor's Police and Community Coalition Advisory Committee. So that's 31,500 going to that.
Yeah, Councilor Director, right? You and I might have the same question.
Is the MPCC what Hannibal Johnson leads?
That's what I wasn't sure.
Is that the,
Or if this is the community advisory boards or a separate, or yeah, if that's
so
the.
what is the
Hannibal-
Mayor's Police and Community Coalition, does anyone know? Is it,
Is that what Hannibal does?
That's Hannibal's,
Okay,
Okay.
that is.
because the other coalition was disbanded.
the cabs were disbanded?
Oh.
Yep.
The citizen advisory boards were disbanded. This is
This is Hannibal's.
this, I think, was instituted maybe under Mayor Taylor or Mayor
It's,
Bartlett.
yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Are they still doing the programming? I thought they had like a 3-day thing every year with youth, like a 3-day.
Or I don't-
We should probably find out
That's
more.
part of the mission.
Do they still do that though?
Yeah, I don't know.
There's a-
I've never
there's a
seen, I don't know what the
youth
outcomes.
The youth forum still happens. I think a lot of this funding goes towards that and
Like
just
youth
the
engagement.
facilitation of the monthly meetings. I did, and this is probably not for you, Reese, but maybe for our staff and or treasury or finance. I would love for us as a council to get a report of the asset forfeiture seizure funds as a total annual.
Yeah.
Cause I think we get these little dribs and drabs, but I don't remember ever seeing like a full annual or even 5-year accounting for those dollars.
Yeah.
So I just think for full transparency, if we could at least on an annual basis get a,
Like from civil asset forfeiture breakdown.
yeah, like a total
Right.
of the ins and outs and what is carry forward and how it stacks over the years.
Mhm.
I think that would be very helpful for
Yeah,
all of us.
makes sense.
I don't know. Are you taking a note? I was like, I don't
I
see
got it.
Sarah, so
Lori's on it. Okay.
I just announce out loud my wish and then hopefully it'll be manifested.
Yeah, sure. Between that and a coffee shop, we're just
Yes.
manifesting. Okay, any other questions on this item? Okay, we are on item 6. Ordinance amending the fiscal year 25-26 budget to make supplemental appropriations of $575,000 recognized from the unappropriated fund balance within the 2020 sales tax fund, East 36th Place sidewalk improvements.
Hi, my name's Jake. I'm filling in for Jared also. I'm the capital budget manager. This, as I believe y'all are probably already aware of this, having approved this previously. If y'all have any further questions, this is just appropriating the budget for it.
Any other? Alright. I guess that's that. We can move, yeah, we're moving fast. That was, you're like, good, can I be done? No. Okay, we're on agenda item 7. Ordinance amending the fiscal year 25-26 budget to reduce appropriations of $280,201.95 within the 2008 GO bond. Issue 5 subfund to reduce appropriations of $234,891 within the 2008 GO bond Issue 6 subfund, and to reduce appropriations of $19,236 within the 2008 GO bond Issue 7 subfund. Reduction of appropriations for the Boston Avenue Bridge.
So this is basically just writing us towards the cash that's available. These were retainages that were held back from the old system carrying forward, so it wasn't actual cash back in these appropriations. Just rectifying the system.
Okay, makes sense. Any questions? All right, agenda item 8. Oh, wait, sorry.
I'm sorry, I want to go back to the previous one.
Oh,
Is-
yeah.
Is that connected to a specific capital improvement project?
The 36th
Yeah,
The
Street.
that's
36? Huh?
That's Karen's.
Well, I mean, what is the project?
It's IoT2
Well,
funding.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, the overall funding comes from the 1 million that each district gets.
Okay.
That's the project, and so this is,
That's all I need.
that's the project
I'm
within
done
that,
now.
yeah.
Okay. You said it come from the 1 million that, okay.
Yeah.
I thought there was a city project that going on that connect, so, but I'm done now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We are on agenda item 8, resolution approving an economic development incentive not to exceed $5 million for a portion of the costs eligible for reimbursement related to the acquisition, alteration, remodeling, and improvement of an existing retail shopping facility pursuant to the terms of an economic development agreement to be negotiated between the city and DRP Tulsa Hills property owner. This has the emergency clause on it. And we lost Aaron. Oh, wow. Oh, so, I'm sorry, should we have played walk-on music?
I was called out quickly.
Sorry. I felt like we should have actually just played theme music for your entrance. All right, tell us more.
So, once again, my apologies.
Oh, it's okay.
So this is the second part of the direct retail partners agreement that we have for the attraction of IKEA to the Tulsa Hills Mall. You cleared off on the 2.5 million portion of this. This is the retail incentive that goes along with it. So the tax incentive that goes along with that program. So as you know, you may remember, the company originally asked for around $10 million. We couldn't reach that number. We used a retail incentive to get to a portion of that. The 2.5 million gave us the rest, so it gave 7.5 million instead of the full 10 million to the developer. So that's what this item is. This is to approve that retail incentive for IKEA. And after this resolution, if you approve it, then we'll do an economic development agreement that will go behind this for your approval.
Councilor Harper.
I thought the 2.5 was retail incentive.
No, ma'am.
What is it?
The 2.5 is what we got from the revolving loan fund, remember? Those
Revolving loan
funds
fund,
that
okay.
came back to the city from loans that had been paid off.
Okay, so the total city incentive is 7.5,
Yes, ma'am.
and their request was 10 million?
Yes, ma'am. A little over 10 million.
Councilor Bengal.
Yeah, just re-educate me here, because
Yeah, I don't remember these numbers. to be
what, the
honest.
2.5 million, from my understanding, was to build out the space. But in the language here, it kind of implies we're reusing that, we're reallocating another $5 million for this same thing. What do you mean? What
So,
incentive are
the-
we actually?
So the total cost of the incentive was around $10 million plus dollars.
Okay.
So to do the build-up that you see described in your
Right.
item. So the 2.5 added with the 5 is to do that whole build-out. That's why they both have the same language. So the 2.5 doesn't cover all the infrastructure work that needs to be done.
That's
to
why
that
I'm confused,
incentive.
why
It's
we
coming
didn't
out of
just
two
do this
accounts.
as one out, as
It's coming
one.
out of
They're
two
two different
accounts.
It's two different
programs.
buckets.
Okay,
That's why I was
gotcha.
just
So
asking.
one
Revolving
program
loan
is a retail
fund,
incentive program.
retail
One
incentive.
program
That's what I was
is the
saying.
actual
Okay.
loan fund that we use to
Yeah,
supply
you're just
the
asking,
2.5
and
million.
It's the
I didn't
capital
hear it
stack.
right,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, I apologize, some of us might have amnesia about the totals. Councilor Lakin, did you, oh, sorry, I thought I saw your hand. Okay, any other? All right, IKEA impending, you didn't bring Swedish fish this time, so it feels a
You know
little
what, I
anticlimactic.
apologize, I should have thought of that this time.
Yeah, that just, you you set an
Do it one time,
expectation.
then that expectation
I still have
continues.
some in my office if anybody needs
Yeah,
it.
me too,
I
actually.
bet they're nice and crunchy right now.
I told my daughter we
They're
could
in a
only get them
nice
by going to
Ziploc bag,
Sweden
and they
because she
are
wanted more.
fresh.
Um,
Just awesome.
Okay, anything else on this item? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
We are
very much.
on agenda item 9, presentation by and discussion with the mayor's senior advisor on homelessness or her designee regarding an update on homelessness programs, including a focus on outcomes and final budget for this year's winter shelter, plans for future winter shelter capacity, and an update on Safe Move Tulsa, including details of expenses to date and an overview of participating partners brought to us by Councilors Dutton and Gilbert. And we have Emily Hall here with us from the mayor's office. I wasn't sure if Councilor Dutton or Gilbert wanted to do any type of intro, or if you just want to dive right in.
Oh, no, let's just.
All right, take
Okay.
it away, Emily.
Thank you all for having me, inviting me to come down. This is gonna be a two-part conversation. The request was to discuss winter shelter and then, and expenses. And then to look at phase 1, Safe Move, the spin down budget. So we'll start with winter shelter. And as we typically do, just review of some of the terminology, that this should be pretty familiar to everyone. So, our winter weather shelter update. Last year, in 2025, at the Mayor Council retreat, a priority out of the retreat was to lift up and open a winter shelter for an extended period of time And that was, the mayor issued an executive order on a winter weather shelter as well. So we were able to do that in partnership with Cree Oaks at their facility on Admiral. And what you see here is a breakdown of several different winter shelters. So the Cree Oaks Winter Shelter served adults only. It was open November 17th through March 6th of 2026. The average length of stay was 29 days with 632 individuals served. Then during the January period of the 23rd through the 29th, we had that severe weather, cold temperatures, and snow where we needed to ensure that everyone was off of the street. And we were able to open Dream Center West in partnership. Along with our other partners, we're able to expand just their general capacity. So Day Center opened up more spaces, Salvation Army opened up more spaces, John 3:16 opened up more spaces. And during that time period, so I'm first gonna break down Dream Center West and then do all the shelters together. So Dream Center West was open from the 23rd through the 28th. And pretty much everyone that entered that shelter stayed there the entire time period of 5 nights. And 224 individuals were served there. Then, all encompassing all of the emergency shelters for the time span of those 6 days in January, we were able to serve 1,343 people. And these are just some highlight groups of that number. 103 children made up that number, 109 were senior citizens, 52 veterans, and 60 pets. So really the continued investment in winter shelter really saved lives. And very thankful for our partners. So as we kind of look at what that winter shelter budget looks like, in 2024, council approved $1.6 million, allocated $1.6 million of ARPA for emergency shelter. And so I'm gonna break down 3 different categories. The overall ARPA spending summary from 2024 to present. With that allocation, we have paid out over $1,194,000. There's $375,000, a little over $375,000 still pending, which means that grants is in the review process before it's paid out. And that leaves us with roughly about a little over $29,000 pending the pending 375. And what we plan to do is, as the summer is heating up, enhance and be able to serve more people at the cooling stations over the summer as temperatures rise with that remaining balance. How this breaks down to winter shelter, this is all encompassing of what occurred in winter shelter throughout Dream Center West, Cree Oaks, and then Housing Solutions work and some expanded capacity amongst our other shelters from November to March. We have paid out $736,000, a little over. We have, again, a little over $375,000 pending in review, and that will be a total of a little over $1.1 million that was spent on this winter, all-encompassing winter shelter. Now, how it breaks down to Cree Oaks specifically, Cree Oaks Winter Shelter, these numbers are Cree Oaks expenses and Be Heard's expenses at this location. I will say that Housing Solutions, as our sole source contractor for the shelter work, had expenses related to winter shelter at Cree Oaks, but that is wrapped up into the winter shelter bucket, not in Cree Oaks. So Cree Oaks is just Cree Oaks and Be Heard expenses that are reflected in these numbers. So for a little over $434,000 has been paid out. $338,000, a little over, is still pending in review, and we will have spent a total of $1,112,040.66 at that specific shelter. The future of winter shelter. So what we are looking at now is Creoaks on any given night was able to serve roughly about 135 to 150 people, able to expand out significantly during that week in January. We have the harbor coming online, our new low barrier shelter at the end of the year. That will add a significant number of beds that, as of right now, really does not necessitate needing to have a long-term winter shelter because of the space and the number of beds that the harbor will provide. What we will be doing over the course of this summer is meeting with shelter providers, including the harbor, and understanding what their emergency capacity is in severe weather times, what their needs might be, and then making some decisions after that on what it would look like if we need to stand up some of these pop-up emergency shelters if needed, like at Dream Center West. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Great. Any follow-up questions? Counselor Dr. Wright?
Thank you. Thanks for bringing this forward, Counselor Dutton, and I know Counselor Gilbert wanted to be here, but will hopefully be here later. Thanks for the presentation. I appreciate having the backup documents too. That is very helpful. I wanted to ask about some of the, I can't remember what slide it is, the number served. Are you guys tracking duplicated versus unduplicated when you're doing this?
Yeah, oh, here, these,
Yeah.
yes. So these are unduplicated individuals.
So we maybe had somebody come in for a few days, leave, and then maybe come back later.
Yes.
And we don't double count them.
We can get that number.
Yeah, we can get that.
Mark, do you mind coming? Mark Smith, CEO of Housing Solutions, Tulsa.
Okay.
So I'm going to stay in the back, but I'm happy to join the table. So I can double check on our numbers. I would think that at the Creoaks Winter Shelter, there may be some, so the total number, the 1,343, that is unduplicated across all shelters, so that's the individuals. There may be some, I'll go back and confirm that the Creoaks Winter Shelter, if an individual stayed there for a period and say then they later stayed at Dream Center, that we
Yeah.
didn't duplicate. I think there might be some, there could be that we were just looking at unique individuals who stayed at that shelter over
By
those-
location.
By location.
But not cross-referencing.
Correct.
Okay.
And there is some of that occurs as these different facilities open and close, like when Dream Center West was closing because the weather was starting to get lighter, and then of course they served families and TPS was reopening. We did have some individuals who were especially vulnerable who transferred to other shelter facilities.
Okay. I guess I just would want to know when we're doing our numbers to communicate how many people get bounced around or come back and leave and come back and leave versus the one time
Yeah.
family or whatever. I just think that's helpful for us when we talk about impact. And I think both are appropriate. You know, I was in food security for a long time, and sometimes funders would be like, you have too many duplicated, clients. And I was like, well, they're still hungry, they're still homeless. So it's not a value judgment. It's just to really understand who we're serving and how. That was one question on that. I have a question, and this is, there was big announcements made about 31-point-something% reduction of visible or unsheltered homelessness. And then I see, that we have this winter event, and the point-in-time count was conducted at the same week. And so can we talk a little bit about how extra capacity at Dream Center West may have caused more people to be indoors at a time that maybe they typically aren't?
Happy to. So it is a unique experience where we have the point-in-time count happening the same day that we're going to have really severe weather. So Dream Center West wasn't included in the point-in-time count results. So the official date for the point-in-time count is Thursday, January 22nd of 2026. The Dream Center facility opened that Friday evening, and so we count everybody who is in a shelter bed Thursday night, and then Friday morning is when we do the canvassing, street canvassing, and we ask where individuals were sleeping the previous.
Okay, and we had, Creoks open
We
in
did
that
have
window.
Correct.
And how many beds are at that facility?
I believe the night of January 22nd, it was either 125 or 126.
And those folks were included in the count?
Correct.
So on March 1st, were they in housing at that point, or did some end up back out?
Some ended up back out, experiencing homelessness, unfortunately. So we
Do you
did.
know how many?
I could go back. We saw as the weather was getting nicer and like it was getting colder, we had more natural folks who left. I would have to go back and see
Okay.
how many of those folks.
I think it's really important to understand for some of you at the table who might not be as, have in-depth knowledge of what the pit count is, and certainly the public. It's a snapshot in time, usually across the country in January, right? So that you're, you know, they're trying to measure across communities. This is for HUD, it's a requirement. Some of us at this table have participated in actually doing the count. I don't know why this year we didn't get invitations to do that, maybe an oversight, but,
That, I take responsibility
yeah.
for that. That's on me.
yeah, so, and I think they used to happen over 2 days. This year they were on 1 day. So there's a lot of differences with how this year's was. And so I think it's really important when we're doing comparisons to take those factors into consideration when we're looking backward. And I would just say that here. I think for a long time, we've been advocating for a winter shelter for all the reasons we know we need one. The final question I have about the winter shelter space, it's like a church that was converted in District 3. What happens to that space from March to November? Is that a cooling station that you're talking about, or?
So you can probably talk more about what Creops is doing.
Yeah, so Creox is currently operating it as a community multi-service center. So they have ongoing Creox Behavioral Health Services, BHERD is still operating, and they're bringing in additional partners in that space. And so they're still, as you know, they've moved from the winter shelter activity, which of course dominated so much of time and resource, and they're doing more long-term planning on the use of the space. It's also still a church, so it has a congregation that uses a
Okay.
portion of the building as well. So they're bringing in, I know right now in terms of the services, there's BHERD services, Creox services, and then they also have other co-located services like the VA. They're working with tribal nations.
So it's
And
kind of like a drop-in center?
Correct, and a place for individuals who, not just drop-ins, but to do appointments for some of these behavioral health or other.
Their
social-
clients.
Their
Yeah,
clients.
their ongoing clients. So, but there's no one staying the night there?
No.
Will people be staying the night there again come November? Is that the plan?
Right now, the plan is that we will have the harbor coming online, and so that is
So
the
just
bed
shift.
space. It's not going to be a winter shelter, but the bed space capacity at the harbor actually increases bed space than what we had at Creox for the winter.
Right.
Um,
But we're
and so-
not keeping Creox and the
Right,
harbor, which would
right.
be like 300 beds.
Right.
We'll have like 180
Yes.
versus 150.
About,
Right.
yeah, anywhere
So
between
we'll pick up
100
30 more beds out west. East won't have.
And what we're doing this summer is working with all the shelter providers, including the harbor, to understand what is capacity look like in emergency weather, where those temperatures drop, where maybe we're getting ice, snow. How much space can they utilize?
Right.
What would those numbers look like, and then decide what might be needed at that
So how
point.
much of this spend that you had on here was outfitting this church that we used for 6 months and we're not gonna use in that way anymore? Can we get that breakout?
Sure.
I'm guessing some of it was to like bring it up to overnight shelter standards.
A little bit, yeah. And we purchased new cots, those are retained by the city, so we have those.
And are those going to the harbor or that goes to like the Dream
That's
Center
go-
pop-up?
That's going to any sort of emergency need, whether it is for a pop-up shelter, maybe there's an apartment, you know, that
Yeah.
there's a fire and people are in need. So the city has.
Slumlord situation where you have to
the-
rapidly
Yeah,
rehouse?
the city has those
100
cots
families?
for emergency purposes.
Okay. I think that's my questions for now. I'll let my colleagues go, but I'm sure I'll have more later.
Counselor Lathan?
Okay, so I'm trying to reconcile the two documents that you sent to us in backup materials, so help me out with that.
So I haven't gotten there yet.
Okay.
Counselor Dutton, did you have follow-ups on this one? And then we can.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask, when you said significant number of beds, what does that look like?
when did I say that?
You mean
I mean-
related to future
Yeah.
capacity?
At the harbor?
Just
The,
in general.
they, will have 180 beds.
And then I know they've looked at, but it probably won't be ready this year, I'm looking at Jeff just to double check, that that physical building has further space that they
Yeah.
could build out into, probably not in the upcoming year, right, but in future years, that could be good shelter space, potentially. Okay, I'm gonna get verification, but isn't in the cards for this year, but there is more physical build-out space where that is a potential use.
So we're going from 150 at Cree Oaks to 180
Right.
as planned in November. So
Right,
picking
with a
up
slightly
30.
different, like, but during a weather event, those will probably already have a lot of humans, there's some offset
Yeah.
there about.
I mean, we're picking up 30 extra beds.
Right, yes.
Yeah. Of
And
course,
then
they'll
they
be
do-
year-round
Yeah.
instead of 6 months.
Yep, and then they do have additional physical space that has potential for the future if needed, which is good. Did you have more? Okay.
So how many decommissionings are duplicates?
Huh? I'm sorry.
The decommissioning?
Decommissioning, what I haven't gotten to
Should we do
safe
that
move
update
yet.
and then we can, do you have more
Okay.
stuff on the winter shelter and then we can come back to
Yeah, I
this?
thought you were done. I was like,
Oh, yeah,
okay.
because we have 2 in backup.
Oh, we're doing it by
Very good.
section,
Yeah.
okay. Did you have more on the winter shelter? It's
I
okay,
don't.
okay. Alright, so we can do the next part and then
Okay.
check back in, okay.
I brought hard copies of,
Okay, thank you.
okay. So next, we're gonna go into Safe Move Tulsa. This is talk really about this spin down. In the small working group, the homeless working group has been working, and so some of this, which some of you all are members of that working group and participating in that working group. So some of this is what we've discussed, but wanted to,
Wait, this is different than that.
There's two sheets.
Oh, okay.
and there's a front and back. So I'm starting with Safe Move Tulsa, this page that talks about
Partners, okay. Oh, I see. Okay. Alright,
Does everybody have this one, Safe Move Tulsa?
and then list partners.
yes.
Okay,
So we're gonna start with that.
there's a partners one and a financial one, okay.
Okay, so Safe Move Tulsa started as a city initiative, looking at how we are closing encampments, getting folks housed, getting them the resources that they need with one-time dollars on a pathway to stability. That quickly grew into a public-private partnership. And our sole source contractor for this work is Housing Solutions Tulsa. They are the project manager. They are overseeing the budget, the execution of the dollars, the reporting of the dollars, the contracts with other entities, and the coordination across the system. So they are a very key and integral piece of the success of Safe Move Tulsa. So as we are growing, as Safe Move Tulsa is growing, we're closing more encampments across the city. The more partners are needed in this work, and Safe Housing Solutions has subcontracted with 2 additional entities, Family and Children's Services and Tulsa Day Center, for stabilization case management. And so that work, that contract is being finalized now, and they will get started very quickly into this work. And then our initiative partners, I know this is a little bit of a list, but several of you have asked for this list, so I just want to walk through it really quickly. I think it's important for you to be able to see just how big this work is and how many people are a part of the work across Tulsa. So Housing Solutions Outreach, they lead the encampment closures. YWCA, the stabilization case management, they are in the encampments doing stabilization case management, and then after housing, they continue with case management. Tulsa Day Center, besides the stabilization case management, they have opened up shelter beds for the downtown closure, as well as participating in the Shelter Rapid Exit. Mental Health Association of Oklahoma, they are leading the Shelter Rapid Exit at Salvation Army, and Salvation Army participating alongside MHA with the Rapid Shelter Exit. John 3:16 is partnering with us in the Shelter Rapid Exit. Grand Mental Health, providing their services around mental health treatment, and they provide transport as part of the downtown work, closure work. Family and Children's Services, Beyond Stabilization, providing mental health and treatment. Creoaks, providing mental health and substance abuse treatment. MetroLink Tulsa, transportation and bus passes. Downtown Tulsa Partnership, they're a key part of the downtown closure maintenance and provide shelter transport. Private security, we're partnering with several different private securities as part of the downtown closure maintenance. Tulsa Police Department with downtown and encampment closures. Tulsa Fire Department, downtown closure and encampment closures. And then many other away home for Tulsa partners as needed. And when we talked about that, this is really a needs-based approach where to meet the individual needs, to resolve that individual's barriers to stability. And so if someone is needing any sort of, maybe they're fleeing a domestic violence situation, we are, through Safe Move Tulsa, connecting them to those resources. We have several people who have come out of encampments who have now been through, because of Safe Move and their case managers, been connected to some educational training opportunities, and so on. So there is a much greater list beyond just this, but it's really based on what that individual is needing at that time. Then, if we want to, Mark, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I would just add, so Safe Move Tulsa, we wanted to list out all these partners. There's some partners that are receiving support and resources through private dollars, so we wanted to list the specific subcontractors within the city funding structure. But just adding on, the Safe Move Tulsa is a part of the broader homeless response system. So, if an individual needs specialized services like, domestic violence, veterans as well, we work quite closely with the VA, tribal nations, as well as if we work with anyone who's a tribal citizen. So beyond that, this work is integrated with the other homeless services. I would say some of the core ones that we found is we have folks who have court records, criminal justice involvement, so we work really closely with the alternative courts, special services docket, Justice Link, to get that resolution, which is critical for housing and then especially employment moving forward. And then another really big partner has been working with different forms of legal aid assistance. So if someone has, an eviction or arrears or things like that that could prevent them from being housed or stable long-term, we access different forms of legal aid services. So, and even employing, long-term financial plans and things like that, so people can improve credit, right? So they can really rejoin the community and have better sustainability long-term.
So now we're going to look at this document where it says Safe Move Tulsa budget and start on that page. So as I mentioned earlier, the homeless working group is meeting on a regular basis, and what want to make sure is that this information is easily accessible and easily digestible as the group continues to meet. So want to start with city dollars, and the city dollars are primarily supporting wraparound services, rental subsidies associated with encampment resolutions, and these dollars are fully encumbered at the time of housing placement. I think it is important to note that we are, while Housing Solutions is responsible for the ongoing budgeting and monitoring, this is really a collaborative effort with the mayor's office and grants and Housing Solutions. We're having regular meetings to really make sure that these dollars are being executed, spent some are on, as we'll get into the ARPA dollars, on a timeline. And so the oversight is ongoing. Then the private and philanthropic dollars supports rapid resolution activities. And these are key components of the encampment response. This is stabilization, case management, and flexible assistance. Many partners, as Mark just mentioned, are leveraging capacity, or what we're seeing across the continuum of care. Many partners are redirecting their resources to align with this initiative, which is not captured in a budget. So, key milestone, as phase one funds are projected to be fully encumbered by September 2026, and then at that point, no additional unsheltered households needing deeper interventions can be newly placed using phase one dollars. So we won't be able to have any new placements unless additional dollars are approved. Exiting households, because they have their 12 months of supports, those dollars have been encumbered, they will continue to receive that through August of 2027. And as we've been working through this, ARPA dollars have been the priority funding source for the initial expenditures. And then once we'll look at the spend down schedule, but once those ARPA dollars have been spent down, then the other funding sources will kick in, and so that there's no gaps in what's been committed to phase one. So, want to look at the three funding sources from the city, and you can see, again, part of Housing Solutions' important work is being able to show us on a regular basis like what has been budgeted, expended, encumbered, and then pending. When we get into like Munis can't see what has been encumbered, and so this is really important to make sure that we understand where the dollars are going. So this is just a breakdown. I will say and this is as of April 30th. So for example, what is not captured in this is Housing Solutions is finalizing the execution of a contract with Day Center Family and Children's, utilizing the opioid dollars for stabilization. So our next update, that will be reflected in there. Then looking at the ARPA spend down schedule, again, this is through up until September, and then after that, we will begin filling with other funding sources. So I want to stop right there. Well, actually, I'm going to finish I'll finish and then come back and make sure you can answer questions on that. If you flip over, just a review of the private dollars, had $4 million of private dollars that have been provided directly to Housing Solutions Tulsa for phase one of Safe Move Tulsa work. There's been an additional $1 million one-time philanthropic investment to YWCA for case management. That was a one-time contribution. Safe Move Tulsa will absorb that expense moving forward, so we can keep those case managers. But once we move into phase two work at Q4 of this year, we will absorb that cost. Housing Solutions, additional staffing and capacity is covered by private dollars. Shelter management and all the rapid resolution, the rapid exits that have just started and are underway at all of our shelters. Private dollars are covering a lot of those needs of individuals. And then they provide Housing Solutions with the flexibility to fill gaps where city dollars may not, and if dollars are needed quickly. So some of the city of Tulsa impacts that we've seen with this work, and we'll be able to have more data the longer time span that these locations have been closed. But Eagles Nest, because this was a daily visited site by our Bike River Patrol, prior to closure, they were spending approximately about 12 hours per week at Eagles Nest. Post-closure, they're spending approximately around 2 hours per week. Code enforcement, after we're closing private property, officers are now being able to be redeployed and utilized elsewhere instead of visiting these locations that have long-standing encampments. Tulsa Animal Services, all animals that are moved out of encampments, they're vaccinated. Some of them may get spayed, neutered if needed. We're reducing the spread of disease and animal control. And then, to date, the encampment cleanup costs to the city. This does not include any rental equipment that might have been needed or personnel costs, but $16,500. Oh, there's an extra zero there. $16,500. And then just, as we are spending down the committed dollars for phase one, once September hits, we will have housed and served all the clients that we can until we have additional dollars committed for phase two. So with that, I will take any questions.
Let's see, I have a little bit of a list going. Okay, everyone's on the list, okay? Let's see, I have Bengal and okay, 1, 2, 3. Just taking care of the village task going first. Out of curiosity, with the case managers from YWCA, has that always been because I remember kind of that, private funding coming in when there were federal cuts to keep those case managers there. Was this always a planned transition to our, okay, I think, so we've always known that this $1 million case manager cost was cut, or is that gonna be going under housing solutions, or I'm just trying to the contract, or?
Yeah, so talking about YWCA, Safe Move initially being a city-funded project and then growing into a public-private partnership. So YWCA had secured funding to set up a case management program to retain staff. And then with federal funds not becoming available and the disruption and Safe Move becoming public-private, that came on. So, and we started working with YWCA committing that staffing in October, which allowed us to start working really concerted at the Eagle Preserve before the city contracts were actually signed in November. So that is one-time funding that the YWCA has received that will end at, depending on spend down here in Q4 2026. That also has, I'll just say this, impacted our spending here in that we had significant staffing costs to start the program that weren't billed to city funding. But in order to sustain those 8 case managers, that supervisory, and to have them committed to Safe Move, it will have to be built into the budget.
Okay.
And we've been anticipating that.
Yeah, we knew that was coming.
Okay, that's it, okay. I was just catching up on that amount of staff you need. But just to double check, so it would be probably Housing Solutions managing.
Housing Solutions would
that
enter into a contract with YWCA for the case managers, just like with Family and Children's and Day Center, the contract that Housing Solutions enters into. And then they handle all the budgeting and payment with that, with YWCA.
But the case managers themselves will still be a YWCA?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the subcontract relationship works really well in that sense because as caseloads become free, we can manage that, so.
And coordinate across organizations.
Coordinate across, and the way that we've set up the system here that works the best in terms of being able to do this is because it's multiple different funding sources that are part of Safe Move. And so we try to make it a little easier on the case management organizations. So we've used the opioid dollars for that staffing, and then Housing Solutions is directly making the rent payments and the move-in and upfront costs. And so that allows us, with ARPA dollars not being a full 12 months, it allows us to manage on the back end what those change of funding source would be for those expenses as we move forward.
Okay.
So,
And then that $1 million coming in Q4, so we knew this was happening and that's part of all the budget configurations. Is that the $1 million sunsets during Q4, or we need to start paying from the city end of it during Q4?
it will likely be near the end of
Or
Q4
sorry.
2026.
Sorry, my nonprofit's on a calendar year, so I'm saying the wrong quarter, don't mind me.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I just realized the number I'm saying, and it's because I'm used to doing a calendar instead of a fiscal. But okay, so Sorry, so during the end of this calendar year.
Correct.
We will start paying, but we knew that this was coming from the beginning.
Yeah, and
Okay.
we're currently working with YWCA on their spend down of their private dollars and what the timing would be. And some of that will be dependent on the next phase of city funding, how we, manage if we're gonna be refilling caseloads in the next year, what we would need to time out to make sure, not only do we sustain staffing, but, we'll have people who will be exiting that 1 year of assistance coming in the fall of this year. And so if we have continuing funding for the initiative, having the ability to refill those caseloads, house the next group of clients would be, that's part of the balancing act.
Okay, thanks, that's helpful. All right, I have Archie, then Dutton lined up next in the queue,
Okay.
and then Olanpu.
Yeah, just hold off on.
Oh, hold off, okay.
Well, thank you for this presentation. Thank y'all for being here.
Yeah.
Can you give me just a 30-second on the shelter rapid exit program? Just kind of give me what that looks like.
Yeah, I'll let Mark go through that. We are gonna have a larger announcement in a couple weeks, but Mark can go through that.
Yeah, so some of the sort of system analysis and modeling that was done was showing that individuals that are entering shelters, on average, were staying, especially, our night overnight shelters like Tulsa Day Center, Salvation Army, John 316, and those are the primary front doors for someone who's recently experiencing homelessness. We have other shelters that are kind of like population specific or might be programming, but for those 3 shelters and our biggest, folks were staying on average about 90 days, and we do have a significant number of individuals, between 75 to 80%, who are exiting homelessness without like formal ongoing rental assistance or case management. But if we could accelerate that, so if we can get those length of stays and people successfully leaving shelter down in half, then we essentially doubled the numbers of beds that would be available over that 90-day period. And so that's been the focus, is how can we work with shelter partners to identify individuals who could leave quicker, and do they need problem-solving support from staff? Do they need maybe one-time assistance?
Right.
And so that shelter rapid exit is really been working with those, primarily Salvation Army and Tulsa Day Center. John 316, we're just starting to work together, and we've done some workshopping and planning just last week on creating a flexible assistance fund. So whether that's transportation to reconnect with friends and family, whether it's paying a deposit, whether it's paying a past due utility bill that would prevent utility connections. If there's a financial barrier that is keeping someone from leaving today, can we solve it? As well as how can we have shelters working not just individually, but among those 3 where most people go if they're seeking a bed tonight, coordinating on like really quick resolutions. So, and that times in with some of the work that we've done downtown to get more folks to go into shelters. So if we want to continue this reduction of people sleeping outside, we need to see more exits from shelter quicker so we have more beds for the next person. And we're starting to see, it's a lot, and I'm looking at Matt here behind us. We're not just talking about using one-time assistance or some additional staffing. We're talking about like kind of reconfiguring the space and also being able to take people in overnight. And so we've seen a lot of progress, especially over the last 2 months, as we've learned and pilot this. I want to thank the Day Center for always saying yes to what's next. But we're starting to see a lot of folks exit, and we're starting to see a lot of folks who have income, who can't get back into the housing market, don't need long-term support. We just need to help them find a place to live, and that's been one of our core focus areas.
And when we started this, we had talked about there are many people in shelters who just need a little bit of support to get them back out of a shelter on their feet, and that is really what this work is doing. It is quickly moving so that people aren't staying in shelter 60, 70, 80 nights, but we're reducing that to under 45 days at most, that someone is in the place of homelessness. And I heard this story, and I just want to share this, of how kind of this work is happening across different segments of Safe Move Tulsa. One of our outreach workers was doing a ride-along with a police officer during the closure, right after the closure of downtown, and they encountered a couple under a bridge and started engaging in going through the process, offering them shelter, and the one person in this relationship, the woman was working and the gentleman had some criminal justice involvement and they didn't know what to do about that. So they were just living under a bridge. She's going to work every day. They have income, enough income to get an apartment. They didn't know how to resolve their problem. So within a 12-hour time span, they were offered transport to Day Center. Day Center had opened up bed space. Day Center then that next morning was entering into the rapid exit and resolution to get these folks the support that they needed and housing that they needed. And so it is that sort of work that's occurring across the system that had we not started the downtown closure work, those people might still be sitting under that bridge, but we were able to quickly connect them to a place to be and those supports the next morning, so.
Well, no, thank you for that. That's a wonderful testimony. The working group, I'm not on the working group that is talking about these, talking about these topics. Are there notes that are produced similar to the small budget committee that we could receive, or how does that kind of work? Maybe I'm looking at Sarah.
Yeah, so the working group has two phases. The second phase has not started yet.
Okay.
And so the first phase was really to talk about what would some of the FY '27 funding look like. And so those very similar presentations, handouts have come to this table. And there's only a couple of those meetings that had occurred. And so the next phase is really to talk about funding strategies and potential dollars moving forward and outcomes and tracking those outcomes. And that work has not started yet. It wasn't meant to start before finishing up this budget.
Yeah, sure. Well, that makes sense. Thank you. And then I have this is my final question. On the ARPA spin down schedule, I'm trying to make sense of the months. Like for April, it says 50 and then 35. Are those the people that have been helped in that month?
Yeah, so that, because you see on the, looking at the spend down schedule, a lot of those payments are the new move-in costs, so what is that, cost for the initial move-in, and then the ongoing payments of rent, and as well as furniture, some of those other direct costs. So we put the projected move-ins, these are folks who are moving into housing from unsheltered locations. That's our schedule at this point. To get to 300 individuals housed and supported. And so you see how that relates to the spend down in cost. And
this is April of this past year?
This April 2026,
Right.
yeah. So I think in April we had a little bit of a lower number, but in May we had a higher number. So there's a balance of it too. And then I think the part that I would want to flag too here is that we put this spending schedule together through September to just show that move-in projection as we're identifying encampments and how many people move there and how many we need to house. If you'll look, by the time we get through September, if we were just looking at ARPA funding sources, we would actually be overspent by $600,000. So that's where other funding sources will have to come in at that point.
What I'm looking at is like the rent, utilities, new move-ins, ongoing payments. That's a sort of a snowballing cost month over month. But if the goal is we exit people after 12 months, maybe I imagine it as a hill that as people begin to exit, become stable, we're spending less money on them. But so maybe it's sort of a wave as new people come in and other people go out.
You would see your peak of expenses related to rent move-in near the end of 2026, as we get the full 300 people who have been moved and housed, full staffing costs, and then as people exit from assistance, then you'll start to crest down. That's right.
Okay. I think that's all.
And then with additional funding, we can continue housing, and then that's where you'll see.
Yep.
Yeah. Makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, I have Counselor Bush and then Bengal.
Just two quick questions. One, on the opioid dollars, are those opioid abatement board dollars or the direct deposits you all get?
The settlement, the direct.
They're direct. Okay. And then on the decommissioning of encampments, is there a list of who's next and what's happening and how can we access that? I know in my district, the entire 51st Street corridor is really bad. So I can't even begin to tell you where to start on it. Maybe at the river and work up. Or maybe it's easier to go downhill. I don't know. But it's right along that highway system is super bad.
And so what you're experiencing some there, and what we're kind of seeing a little bit of is some movement starting to, so maybe people aren't sitting there for long periods of time, but there's people coming in and out, and that is really a different, we're gonna be looking at that, what approach we begin to take to solve that problem, as opposed to with this right now, what we've been doing is, some of these long-standing, larger encampments that have, that we need to take care of to close, and then begin looking at, okay, we have 51st Street corridor from this street to this street that where there's just cycles of folks moving in and out. How do we begin to focus on an area? So it's a little bit of a different approach. It's similar to what has happened downtown, where it's kind of a zone area approach. Is what we'll begin as we move into the next phase, starting to look at as we are closing areas. It's not just an encampment site, but it will include an area.
So about when will that start?
I think it depends. So I'll just say from two-part, we mentioned other leverage resources. With the encampment decommissioning and safe move building really capacity, we're having to think about like how does the homeless response system sort of organize around these resources. So you mentioned Housing Solutions staff has really done the direct encampment decommissioning process, but as we are getting more, we've been having conversations with other service providers, looking at Family and Children's and Tulsa Day Center behind us, both on what outreach capacity is needed to do encampment decommissioning, what is needed to identify the encampments moving forward to build out that list, as we've done some of the really long-standing, well-known encampments, but we know there are more in the community, and then also what is needed for emergency response or like urgent issues. So outreach providers are meeting right now to figure out how do we create that balance so we can go through a 4-week encampment decommissioning process, we can identify where there's encampments or regular stairs, and we can do crisis response. I do want to say it is helpful too. I know we talk with the city, and so when we get constituent reports or city council share where there's regular camping occurring, it's helpful for us in terms of where do we work with outreach to identify a regular location. As Emily mentioned, one of the challenging parts is the because the encampment has a definition of a place where people are regularly sleeping, setting up structure, whether it's a violating of private property, trespass, or code ordinance, it can be a little bit different than what members of the general public sometimes think of as an encampment, as a place where there's trash or people loiter. So that's been one part of like how do we distill where's a place where people are setting up in a boat and regularly sleeping is something that we've learned too, because we've gone out to a lot of sites where there's a bunch of trash pile up and it turns out there's not many people sleeping there. Maybe it was illegal dumping that happened, or it's a place where people congregate during the day but don't sleep at night. So I would love to
Or the reverse is true, Mark, too.
Or the reverse could be true.
Because
as
at 51st and Lewis and 51st and Harvard especially, I mean, because I've been out there like at midnight, they are camping.
Yeah.
It's a public campground.
Mhm.
Now, they're gone during the day,
Mhm.
so by the time I get the complaint,
31st and Memorial as well.
Not at Yale, they're there all the time.
they're,
Yeah,
yeah.
44.
I mean, we know by
44 at
name
Yale.
now. They might as well set up a P.O. box
And-
right there.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the next piece of this work with ongoing
Sorry.
funding and being able to pull in, as we're doing, pulling in more partners to the work, looking at this approach of, is it a specific corridor? Is it, because people are moving more, and how are we addressing that? So as Mark said, those conversations are underway right now, and that planning is occurring.
Okay.
We are definitely seeing it more.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have Counselor Bengal next, and then Counselor Lakin.
Yeah, so help me, if I'm looking at this from, if I were to just be handed this in the public, says phase 1 funds are projected to be fully encumbered by September. Is this specifically on the ARPA funding?
All of them.
Is that all this is focused on, or are you talking about all 6 million?
Yeah, all of it. All 6 million will be encumbered by
Okay.
September 30th. So as the spin down is occurring and more people are coming online, when they are exiting homelessness, those dollars then for the next year are encumbered. So they may start out with 1 month on ARPA and then move, because that spin down, we've hit that deadline, then move to a different funding source.
Okay. Okay, so, and then you're also saying, and you had, was it 5 million in private dollars?
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Okay.
4 million and then a 1 million
Right.
one-time gift to
So fine,
YWCA.
right, and so you're saying that basically we're going to have to absorb the cost of the harbor, which is about a $1 million operating cost per year, right?
Uh-huh.
And then also this case management as well.
The case management has been known and built into, we had actually planned it as we were kind of even talking about the original budget, and then they received the grant to cover that, so we were able to do some more front-end hiring. So we have known that in the budgeting process,
Okay.
that it would become a contract, a subrecipient contract from the get-go.
So let me ask a question. This is a rumor, so I want to stipulate that. I understand there's some issues with one of our partners here where their invoices are not being paid timely. Do you want to speak to that? Where there's like some interference with their organization and that their invoices aren't being paid on a timely basis?
I don't know, if it's related to Safe Move Tulsa, we are having regular meetings with grants
Okay.
and housing solutions. So anything else, I'm happy to,
That's floating
get a
out in the
better
public. I'm just
understanding.
curious if you've heard
yeah.
that.
If it is relating to Safe Move, that's what I can speak about, is that we're meeting regularly. And so housing solutions.
What if it's related to the winter shelter?
Right.
Then.
I'm trying not to say the individual organization.
You don't need
I think
to.
Purposefully.
You don't need to.
You may have, it's hard to respond to something.
You-
that
you-
is-
we don't
No,
want
we're
to
not
direct-
gonna
we're
say
not
that.
gonna
I'm
do
happy
that.
to figure something out, but
It's
talk
related
up,
to the
but I
winter
don't-
shelter,
Right.
I believe.
I don't know what
Correct.
the problem is to address it, but I'm happy to address if there's an issue.
Okay, so let me ask the question this way then, Emily. Every invoice that the city receives, we're processing that timely and getting it back to the folks that we're partnering with to do this work.
Yes,
Okay,
yes. Now, and I don't know if Grants is still here, when Grants reviews an invoice, if there are questions, they will reach back out to the person, to the entity for follow-up. They may need additional information before they can approve it.
okay.
Maybe one, just if I can help Counselor.
Yes, sir.
Maybe it's helpful to kind of walk through when there have been challenges with invoices, kind of what happens there. And maybe if there's some things that we're doing on the front end to help folks. I think to the heart of the question is, what happens if there's a problem with an invoice? How do we ensure that it gets done, or whatever? I don't know if that might be helpful, Counselor.
Yeah.
It depends on the answer, yeah.
Sure.
So,
So I think this is part of the role that we play, is that, if the city has to subcontract with multiple different partners, it takes a lot of time, it adds a lot of complexity. And so we take on that burden of sort of the financial intermediary. And then we also provide as much guidance as possible to partners that we're working with. So especially with winter shelter, when you talk about different staffing, temporary staffing, the city has requirements on how you do your time reporting, how you do your expense reporting, and especially with the ARPA dollars, making sure that those are aligned and usable. So we provide guidance with partners on that. I will say with the winter shelter, because of sort of the uniqueness and expanding, I mean, these reimbursement packets can be 300 pages plus long. And so there's a significant process that goes into, for the individual organization, compiling those expenses, working with us to send them, that we review and QC, and then we send to city, and then the city then sends back if there are corrections. And so we have had things where an individual, like how they do their time tracking or staffing, it's not the way that City Grants and Finance needs to see it in order to review. And so we work with them to be able to give that documentation, to work that back. Sometimes there's expenses that the provider thought were allowable, that aren't gonna be allowable, and Housing Solutions works if we can, if there's an alternative funding source, so we're not causing harm. But there can be a lot of back and forth in process, and that is a tricky part. I think that is, one of the values that, nonprofits bring to this space is like working with government, having to justify the use of taxpayer dollars is a challenge, and we support our partners in doing that. But I think that's, it's a little bit of what we know going into it. It's also some of the complexities, not winter shelter, but talking about safe move, when you have 3 different funding sources, working with partners to manage what's allowable, what's not, how you can structure this, it takes a lot of time and work, I'll say on that. So I would say there's that, and so there's a learning process, especially if a partner has never received federal dollars before, and that is gonna come with different restrictions than funds you might raise through your own fundraising. And then I would say that there's also just that built-in delay of, you're gonna have 30 days where you do your expenses. For an organization, it can be anywhere from 10 to 30 days to actually compile your expenses so that you can submit for the reimbursement and all the processing time. I mean, best case scenario from expense to reimbursement is 60 days, but that's just usually not how it's gonna happen. It can be on a 60, 90 days.
So were we front-loading the training on how they need to fill out their paperwork and their expenses so they can be reimbursed on a time? Because I'll be honest with you, I would never want to do this because you might have to front-load some expense, and how they fund those things up front, dependent upon a contract that they may have. And they, like I said, I want to be very careful when we have folks that are doing this work and they're front-loading the cost on this, and then potentially they may not meet the requirements or may not have the same understanding of the use of those fundings. I want to make sure we don't put these partners in a bad position. So hopefully when we're bringing these partners on board, we're front-loading the training to understand the requirements and the use of those fundings, and not expect that they would know that.
Right.
Should be part of the
absolutely,
RFP
yeah.
process.
Right.
And we do, when working with partners, we set an expectation that, like, you're gonna have to have a certain amount of cash on hand, just to be able to manage and flow. I'll be fully honest that Housing Solutions, when working with smaller partners, at times we have fronted money expecting a reimbursement, so that a partner is not damaged or, right, has to.
Right.
So we can also build nonprofit organizations' capacity. We can't always do that, sometimes depending on the size or the scale of the expense, but especially when working with a nonprofit. We've done that in the past where it's they've sent their expenses and receipts, and we've done our QC when we have a great deal of confidence that the city will reimburse. And again, this is where us being as the financial sole source, we could do this, we couldn't do this unless there's that process. We have advanced expenses, or we even do things like when the city approves an expense, but maybe there's going to be a delay on the ACH, we pay immediately, knowing that the funds, so we're trying to make every part that we can to help partners with that. It's a cash flow issue, and there's a little bit of risk too, that you gotta make sure that what your expenses incurred can be reimbursed. But that is a little bit of the nature of, unfortunately, working on a reimbursement basis. And with federal dollars are always very restrictive.
Okay, so I want to be very clear. The statement we're making here is we're not interfering with anybody else's organizations. We're not blocking any payments for expenses or invoices that are purposeful and intended for this specific initiative.
The only time that I'm aware of.
Or delaying them in any way, shape, or form.
Not on an intentional basis, or unless in a reimbursement, because, yeah, and this does happen, that an expense was incurred that wasn't allowable based on the funding source.
Right, and I'm sure you would be able to articulate the rationale behind that. So this was a rumor that I've heard recently, it's been floating around. So this is the place to ask that question and have an answer. That's all I have.
All right, I have Counselor Lakin, then Dudden, then Dr. Wright, and Gilbert. Yeah, we just did everybody. We should have just gone around the table.
You may have said this, where are we on the 300 number? What number are we at? How many people have been served?
So we have out of
Is it in
encampments, no, it's not in there. We are at our last announcement, 134, with 9 encampment closures in downtown. And just at the end of June, we are gonna make another announcement. That will be our next update on numbers.
how big will that number be approximately?
I can't share that number.
Just trying to make a teaser.
I
He
think-
said next 200.
Yeah, so we're actively working in an encampment right now, and the progress that we've seen with working with shelter partners has been significant, especially over the last, I don't want Mac to feel like there's a spotlight on him, but,
There should
especially
be.
the last, they're doing amazing work, especially over the last 30 days, so it'll be significant.
The next update will include rapid exits and another enclosure.
But don't those include encampment closures from like Riverside as well?
Mhm.
Okay.
The 134 does.
Right, okay,
Yep.
you had said 9 downtown.
It's on the website.
but there's
Nine
more.
encampments plus downtown.
Oh, plus downtown, okay.
It's on the website.
Isn't, so in this statement, under key milestones, the third bullet point, it says that they'll be supported with this subsidy through August 2027. I think there's a September in that first bullet point, fully encumbered by September 2026. That's dependent, though, on the 300 number, right?
Yeah,
And so if you don't hit the 300 number, then the September 2026 moves a little bit?
no, because we have to spend ARPA dollars down.
Well, I know, but if you only have 200 people, then how are you going to spend the ARPA numbers down?
Oh. Yeah, well, but we'll get to the 300.
Yeah.
Okay, by, so,
It's a
Yeah.
thousand.
and then where, I can't make sense of where you are in these numbers, so I don't know what this thing at the bottom means. I'm trying to figure out, so you have a balance of 1.26 million. I don't know what that variance means. What,
Yeah, or,
Yeah.
how are you gonna spend the 1.26 million between now and the day that we have to claw it back so that we can use it for other things in the city?
Yeah, so we're shifting the majority of payments moving forward in these categories to be all ARPA to make sure that we're on track for that spend down. So I think the ARPA maybe it would have been a little better to flip that. The ARPA remaining balance currently is 1.26 million. With this projection of new move-ins to housing and the ongoing costs that we predict by the end of September, those total costs for rent, utilities, one-time move-in expenses, program delivery, and a little bit of indirect would be 1.8 million. So you can think of that is that if we stay on track with our move-ins, which our aim is to do that by the end of September, that really in August, that we would actually fully expend ARPA, and we would have to move to another funding source for those expenditures. Or if, say, we get a little bit behind on some of those move-ins, we certainly have, we're predicting that by the end of September, that we will have spent all of ARPA, and even really before that, we'll switch over to another funding source. But even if we do get a little bit perhaps behind on some of our projected schedules, we have plenty of cushion to make sure that the ARPA will be totally expended. And then, so we're
Okay,
looking at
expended or encumbered?
expended.
expended.
Okay.
The other
As it
sources.
says see below, that's where I'm getting confused on the, I mean, I think I know what you're saying, but I'm trying to just read it literally. And so this is why the explanation of the conversation is good.
Yeah, absolutely. I see you now where it says see below and the encumbered makes it a little bit confusing, yeah.
And it does have to be expended per ARPA rules?
Yes.
Okay. And you believe you will expend it by maybe August, at the latest September 30th, based upon this schedule and your
Yep.
things that will be discussed and disclosed relating to numbers that will get us to the 300 by a certain date?
Yes.
Okay. Going back to Counselor Bingle's earlier point, with respect to the monies that have been spent, when we're talking about spending money, encumbering money, are we talking about the 6 million or the 11 million? I've heard both things.
So what we're looking at right now is the encumbered is just the city dollars.
Yep.
And you can speak to the private dollars, because I don't have.
Yeah, the private dollars, what we found is that the private dollars do plug in on some of the encampment decommissioning and the longer-term assistance, especially for expenses that may not fit under ARPA or opioid categories, or some of the one-time expenses, like setting up a rental payment system that we've had to do to be able to manage and build capacity for this long-term. But the majority of those dollars are going to the rapid exit, some of the shelter capacity work, and some other one-time assistance. So that there's still some blending, especially for flexible one-time costs, but in general, right now, they're a little bifurcated. That could change. Having private dollars aligned with city dollars is really important. I don't know, hopefully, with next year and future years' funding, what those funding sources will look like and where they may have restrictions. And so having private dollars that have more flexibility that we can braid in will be really helpful. But for right now, the vast majority of the $4 million commitment in private is going to the flexible assistance, additional staffing related to shelters and that rapid exit, and then some of the overall initiative administrative support system investment.
Not really related to anything that we see on the first page, the front page.
Not too much. There's a little
Okay.
bit, but not enough where it really would, with some expenses that wouldn't fit within some of the budget categories that might muddy the waters related to those direct private dollars. What's not reflected in here is that $1 million in funding that went to YWCA. So that is direct to YWCA, and so we don't report on that budgeting. I can say, pretty confidently that based on them hiring their staff and their expenses, I would expect that their expenses are over $750,000 at least at this point, just based on when they started and where we are in the year. And so I think the city council should think of that not as like taking over a cost letter, but that was additional dollars that allowed us to get service.
Do you know what the accounting of it is? Like, of that $4 million, how much has been spent? Does Housing Solutions keep track of that?
Yeah.
Is that something we should have access to or could have access to, just that we could see, hey, here's what City of Tulsa dollars are doing, here's what the private sector dollars are doing, since we're in this together?
If it's okay with you, Counselor, I would like to talk, how
Oh, yeah,
private funders get.
I'm truly asking.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
question.
I think if it's okay with you, I'd go back to the private funders and just make sure that there's level of comfort. I think it might be helpful to, if we look at just like total initiative, I think, and expenditure and everything like that, but if it's okay, if I can take that as a follow-up.
Sure, yeah. No, I need to know right now. No, so on advancing, so City of Tulsa funds have been advanced to Housing Solutions. Housing Solutions, you said, has advanced, so you have advanced or you've quickly reimbursed some of these nonprofits that are, I presume, on this list. What's the balance of the advancements?
No, you're not for Safe Move.
Not for Safe Move, we were talking for the winter shelter, when we were doing some advanced payment, especially
that's my
working with
mistake.
a much smaller, smaller in terms of size and capacity nonprofits. So I believe on the initial advance that was provided through Safe Move Tulsa, that's been totally expended at this point, maybe except for a few.
Of the CRF.
Except some of the CRF is, I think the ARPA advance is completely done, and then I'll have to go back on the CRF dollars. So there might be a little bit remaining in the CRF. I know for the ARPA, because it's federal dollars, and if there's an advance, there's specific requirements on how we set those dollars aside. I believe we fully expended that advance 2 months ago, I believe. So I think at this point, I'll go back and look at the balance on the CRF advance. I don't think there's that much.
And Counselor, just for clarity, when Mark mentioned paying for winter shelter, that's just out of Housing Solutions budget. That's not, the city has never advanced dollars for winter shelter work, so that's just out of their own
Okay,
budget.
so we did advance for
Safe Move.
Safe Move,
Uh-huh.
and we believe, but we didn't advance any monies from Safe Move to any of these partner agencies.
No.
There's no advances on that, they just have to support that through their own budgets, cash position.
Then as reimbursements occur, that reimbursement is deducted against that advance. So
But
they have to go
There's
through.
no advances to the small agents, to the
Right,
agencies.
right.
Yeah.
So our subcontracts with other agencies through Safe Move right now are specifically opioid dollars, so there was no advance with opioid funding, so we wouldn't have the ability to do that. And we've structured this that the subcontracts with nonprofit partners that are part of the, opioid funding, we've tried to keep that to staffing and some direct payment costs to make that reimbursement process a lot easier on them. So some of the more complicated costs to, allocate, measure, the rent, the one-time assistance, the move-in, some of those other costs, Housing Solutions is not expecting that, our other nonprofit partners to, direct payment. And so we try to minimize their sort of floating cash requirements, really just in staffing and a few other reimbursement, mileage, those kind of things, so that, and most nonprofits are, used to, you're gonna have your payroll expenses, and if we can get that reimbursement in the next 30 days, it's sufficient.
Okay. I may have some follow-ups, but let me turn the floor over to other people. Thank you all.
Okay, I have Counselor Decorate, then Gilbert.
Thank you. So I'm on this chart here. Can you help me understand March? It says move-ins, it's blank, but there's 38,000 ongoing payments and furniture at 81.5. Is that just number missing?
I think that, so that 38,000 was the number of expenses related to March and the move-in kits and furniture. We didn't actually.
How many did we have?
We didn't have any move-ins. I think we had some move-ins in March, but really we're counting them
They
all
were-
in April.
Yeah.
So the $63,000 on this March line item was like ramp-up costs or something? I'm just trying to figure out what that one
Yeah,
is.
some of those costs, and we purchased a lot of the move-in and furniture kits because they have to get shipped. We purchased them before some of the move-ins.
To get
actually-
ready.
Yeah, to get ready.
Okay, so March was like, let's get ready with some inventory. April, we're actually distributing it to people.
Correct.
Okay, it's just a little confusing on there.
It's like if there's a 4-week window
Yeah.
of closure.
Yeah. I appreciate Counselor Lakin asking about the 4 million private and your distinction that there was another million outside that 4, that was a launch. Because you had said something, some of these partners receive public funds, and my question was, is it inclusive of the 4 or exclusive? So it's exclusive. And on the 4 that's matched to R6, that came directly to you, right?
Yes.
So you're managing that 4 against R6?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that process, we haven't received the full 4. It's on an ongoing spending
Distribution,
distribution
okay.
basis.
On the opioid dollars, will those be spent down by September?
That, there's not a time limit to spend those down, so when the ARPA dollars spin down, opioid will kick in and start filling some of those gaps.
Does that fill the $600,000 gap here?
Some of it, yes, and then 1.3 million of it has been entered into a contract for day center and family children stabilization case managers.
Okay, so this negative 599,853 is covered.
Uh-huh, yeah,
Okay.
by the other
Doesn't need to be
funding
covered
sources.
by us is what I'm trying
Yeah,
to
it-
No,
find out. Okay, have we applied for more opioid grant monies?
so this is not the grant, this is
The
the
direct.
direct settlement.
Okay, but have we
Dollars.
applied for opioid grant monies?
Yes, there was an application, and
Did
I'm
we?
not sure what the,
Do we have an award?
I'm not sure what
Okay.
that, the result of that was, but not for Safe Move.
Yeah, I understand that I guess I'm sitting more at the whole universe of homelessness and housing, because we still have eviction work to do, and maybe some utility support to do, maybe some rental assistance to do, so, Counselor Lakin and I were the only ones at this table besides Mark, and I think you were there, part of the discussions on the 3H task force. And so, in my mind, Safe Move Tulsa is one facet of all of those big recommendations, and I totally understand why this administration's focus on Safe Move. But I'm still going back to these other supports that we know, and I will just say, I've shared this with some of my colleagues, the longer we do this work, very concentrated on downtown, the more in my community I'm hearing, hey, I'm having a hard time paying my rent, or paying my utilities, or keeping a house, keeping stable housing, and it seems like to me that I have to fall into homelessness before I'm going to get support, and I have a hard time, saying, no, that's not true, because we don't have these other supports in place. I'm not saying it's a Safe Move issue, I'm saying in the whole big strategy, I'm starting to get some of that from folks. I'm also hearing frustrations about the decommissioned encampments in my community that now have more people back. And I have conflicting reports from law enforcement versus the conversations we've had about, are those new encampments, people passing through, whatever it is. When law enforcement tells me that they have to go out and get people off of properties that we say we've decommissioned, I don't think they're confused. So I'm just, as we have these very public conversations about where investment needs to go, I just want to level set on opioid dollars can't go to Safe Move, but they could go to some of these other things. They could go to a court, addiction services docket, or some other ways that we can help prevent drug addiction or help those who are in the throes of it that are just stuck in this revolving justice involvement, then that puts them even further away from housing. So, if you learn of those opioid award grants, I would love to know if you got them and what they could be used for, so we can think more strategically. Yeah, thank you. I want to talk about outreach, Mark, because, you know, through the pandemic, we're able to scale up outreach. For a long time, outreach was just concentrated on downtown, and then we were able to get these quadrants of the city covered. My understanding is now with Safe Move, those folks have been really refocused on decommissioning. Do we still have teams that when we fill out that form for help, people are deploying like timely?
Correct. So Housing Solutions is dedicated between 4 to 5 staff members directly to encampments. But if you fill out the form, that goes to Housing Solutions, but it's distributed to other outreach provider partners.
Mhm.
So it's not just like Housing Solutions staff.
It's the continuum.
It's the continuum,
Okay.
correct. So what we are experiencing from an outreach perspective, yeah, I think especially over, Mac's gonna.
Like, do you know how many teams we have just citywide?
This has been, I think, part of the tricky part is that we did have an expansion of outreach services, but that we have had a reduction over the last couple of years, especially, and, you know, Family and Children's is here, that some outreach teams are funded with state mental health funding dollars.
Okay.
Or ODMH, and so, you know, we know that those contracts, were disrupted, and there's still some work that's being done, with those organizations, either on restaffing or getting some predictability. So that has had a negative impact on some of the outreach-based work. And then as some private dollars for other nonprofits that do that do outreach-based work, you know, that's year over year. So I would say at this moment, we do have less capacity in terms of staffing for outreach than we did a year ago, but I would put a lot of that towards the state reductions in funding.
Okay.
And then,
So that like impacts on citizens, they feel that.
For sure.
Right, so I just wanted to, one, ask if it's a real thing that's happened, two, find out why. But you're saying right now, if somebody goes on that help form, it is still deploying out, it just might not be like that day.
yeah, it's most likely not gonna be that day unless
Yeah.
it's an emergency.
It used to be like that day, you'd get like a phone call or an email, okay. Emily, you had said something about there won't be any new placements until additional dollars are approved. Are those the additional dollars in the budget proposal? Okay, so we're not talking beyond that right now?
Right, yeah.
Okay. You know, we got a memo from you earlier in the year that was like, if we don't get $20 million by July, this whole thing's falling apart. Are we not, like,
Well-
we've solved for that problem now?
The 20 million, we've solved the 6 million, and then if we receive ongoing private dollars,
Mhm.
that allows us to continue at the pace we are
Okay.
currently continuing. The 20 million was to do it at scale, and to
That's
do
the
it at
phase two?
to do it at it just allows for more people versus
So
10
phase
million.
one is the 300 hard to house, 1,000 total
Mhm.
with these lighter touch supports. When do we get to the lighter touch support part of phase one?
We're in that now, that's the rapid exits out of shelter work that's
So where are
underway.
they rapid exiting to? Do we have like a ton of, we have 600 apartment units, housing units in the ecosphere to put them in?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand how we do this in 6 months.
Absolutely. I'm happy to give some examples of where some of the outcomes. So we do have folks that are exiting into their own apartment units. We have a lot of folks who are reconnecting with family
Okay.
and creating
So
some
not new units?
Yeah, more natural support systems. We do have some folks that there's transportation, that, you know, whether it's, you know, they have a family or resource or connection, you know, in adjacent areas. And we do have a small number, you know, I know this is something that the day center focuses on really well, that rapid exit assistance has helped them get into long-term care. Whether it's nursing or assisted living, so it's sober living as well. So it's
Okay.
quite a large variety of what those different types of exits look like.
And do you feel confident the 300 that you've been working, we're at like halfway point with that number, that we can take this 700 in the next 6 months? Or I guess some have already started. Do you know how many of the 7? Like our goal is 1,000.
Yeah.
Do you
We'll
know?
have an announcement very soon.
Oh, this is the thing we're waiting for
Yeah.
next week?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, I guess I'll read the press release for that.
Or read Kevin's story.
Yeah. You talked earlier about the average takes 90 days, and some will need up to 12 months of support. is there any plans for beyond the 12 months, or is it just 12 months and then you're on your own?
Right now, we're trying to figure that out. I think the funding with Safe Move has been a 12-month length of assistance. In terms of ongoing, subsidy or support, it's been really challenging from the homeless response system as a whole. HUD released the annual notice of funding opportunity that our community has applied for every year. Just this funding opportunity was released about 4 months late last year and then canceled twice and never released. So
Right.
we were fortunate that Congress actually renewed those contracts, so we didn't see a loss of funding and programming here, but we had quite a few nonprofits that went months without knowing if they would be reimbursed for expenses. That federal funding source is shifting much more towards short-term assistance, very heavy focused on substance abuse treatment, income, and employment. And so it's really hard for individuals that they need longer term care to find where that might be right now. It's what we're.
Do you have a funding map in the continuum, or just with Housing Solutions, where it's like, here's what we had, federal, state, because those are things, right, that are definitely impacting as we have built out ours and have to be flexible and responsive. Can you provide something to us that says, like, here's what it was, here's what it is, here's what we think it's gonna be, just so we, all of us here, can really understand the whole landscape? I think some of us have dug in a little bit more, and we don't eat, sleep, and breathe this every day, but I do understand, like, when vouchers recede, when the units who accept vouchers have gone away, there's a big redevelopment happening in my district with one of the worst evictors in the history of the city, who caused one of the worst disasters that I would say of housing, and they're back in business. I'm sure they're gonna be offering units to rapidly rehouse people. Their rent rates are double of what they were when we shut them down. Those buildings are exactly the same with, the required improvements. But at my community meeting, they committed to not accepting any voucher recipients, whereas before they had taken 75. Mind you, those weren't the ones in the worst units. It was the market rate rent folks. So I just, as the ecosystem keeps shifting, and I know when we use our incentive dollars for housing, we are putting those caveats and while I talk about that disaster in my district, we have a new housing partner coming in that's gonna do 300 and something units, all workforce and, affordable. Right, so super excited. It's gonna take them 24 months though, right? So, if you could, in your free time, or if you already have it, kind of map out for us these different moving parts, like when the state didn't do this, that left this gap, especially on the social work support side, right? Because at the end of the day, in order for us to be successful, people need the support, the housing, the things they need. Ideally, we have partners at the federal and state and tribal level backfilling some of that, or propping up some of it. But when they don't, we still have those needs. So I would like to better understand that as we really start having conversations about Brown ordinance funds, future grant funds, a GO bond, a lodging tax, like all of these things. We really do need to understand the full landscape, I think, financially. So right now, there's support for up to 12 months for those who need it, and beyond that, maybe shifting to something else, but probably not full capacity that we need. Same on the housing side, which is not new not new for any of us to know. I was just, in my brain, I was like, how in 6 months do we take 600 or 700 people? But if some of them are going back to family or into nearby communities where they came from or whatever, then that makes sense to me.
We've been able to, even out of some of the rapid exits, reconnect folks with their tribal nation.
And get them IDs and do all the things. I think it'll be very important as we continue to talk about decommissioning, to start talking about who is staying in housing. The point in time count, folks, some were celebrating, others were scrutinizing and going, it looks like 6 people difference. Kind of talked about earlier how more shelter space means more people are sheltered at the time of the count. That doesn't necessarily mean they're not sleeping out today, because you've got one person with one issue that needs a very specific program. I think it is important, though, to talk about retention or stabilization. I have concerns that from providers, they're saying, yes, they've exited homelessness, and 90 days later, they're back out. And so we need to be honest about what that looks like. And is it sober living that we need? Is it more inpatient treatment that we need? It's gonna be important that we know this so we can advocate for it, and also look at where investment needs to happen. You know, and then celebrate the wins when people literally just had a bump in a road, got on the pathway, and are doing all the things that we hope and pray for them. But I really want us to, the numbers are confusing to a lot of people, including at this table. And I understand celebrating wins, but I am concerned about overpromising and underdelivering. We have had to work so hard. I will just say, I ran on a platform for unsheltered homelessness in my community behind Lowe's because it was a problem that nobody at City Hall was talking about in 2018. In fact, I think most people thought unsheltered homelessness was a downtown issue. And for at least my first term, the conversation was that is for the faith community and the nonprofits to do. And then COVID hit, created more crisis for people, for evictions. We had to get moratoriums and things in place. And I think that is the first time with those federal dollars that we were really able as a team at the city to go, we have a role to play in this. Doesn't mean we take the lead, but we do have to be in. And through the 3H task force work, we heard week after week why the hospital system, the housing partners, the frontline workers need the city to convene and to be at the table financially. My concern is that if we're not all on the same page with the numbers, the costs, who we're serving, how we're serving, we lose the confidence of the public. We all know that for the first time, I think in 2024, when you ask the public their concerns about the city, homelessness was there with streets, and bridges, and public safety, and the things that we know have led for years. So collectively as a community, we know this is a problem that we need to address. We need to maintain their confidence that we know what we're doing, we're using best practices, and when we say we're gonna house 1,000 people by December, or that's our goal, like we have benchmarks and we're measuring it, the dollars are flowing. I do have concerns about what Councilor Bingle just said. It's very difficult for I don't need to tell you, to front the dollars and hope that the government contract backfills it timely. I would ask, how are they doing it? Are they on lines of credit? Like, what are they doing to front dollars that they're waiting $500,000 or whatever to come back through the door? It makes me nervous. We have to be good partners to our nonprofit partners, including Housing Solutions Tulsa. And we've talked about how the city fell short with you all, right as you were coming in to lead the agency. So I think for our purposes, the more we can track these dollars, I think we were supposed to be getting monthly reports and maybe that fell away or they just started coming by email. But I would just say as fiscal stewards, it's our job to also be looking at these things and asking these questions. And I really am grateful that you brought this to us and Councilor Gilbert, but I think we need to be doing this on a more regular interval so that we can see early where we might have to make some decisions or where we might need to go have conversations. And, it's not like go do this thing and poof, we'll check in on you every, you know what I mean? This is a group project and it takes all of us to be understanding the dynamic as they happen. I think I will just say I would like to learn more about how whatever happened in the legislative session at the state level now is impacting what we can do. I don't think I fully understand that right now. So thank you. And I'm sure we'll just continue to stay in a dialogue. But I appreciate you. I appreciate the continuum of care. It's not easy work. And of course, this economic uncertainty that's all across the country is also a factor in a lot of this and who we might see showing up into the fall.
I had Councilor Gilbert, but she's not back, so
Yeah.
Councilor Dutton.
Okay, so I'm wondering about the contracts. You mentioned earlier, Mark, Emily, about Family and Children's Services and a contract that was going to add 6 more team members to their outreach.
No.
That was
Just
supposed to be
just to
signed?
clarify, the Family and Children's contract is with Housing Solutions for case management stabilization and day center.
Yeah, so the outreach, Safe Move Tulsa isn't paying for any outreach related. That's all in either leveraged or aligned funding that's happening there.
So are any of these partners performing without contracts?
So we have, yeah, I think we have quite a few. So just to clarify, so for the case management for folks who are long-term unsheltered exiting housing, we have YWCA, Tulsa Day Center, and Family and Children's Services. So YWCA, we have an MOU because they're using private dollars, so that's where we have a line. And then we have a contract for Family and Children's that's in negotiation, and a contract that's been executed with Tulsa Day Center. Housing Solutions held an RFQ among, so qualified local nonprofits could, apply to be a part of this program. And so created a process there to identify the right agencies. And we'll still have that as this program grows and we can house more people and we need to bring on more partners, we'll have the opportunity to do that. But other partners like Downtown Tulsa Partnership that is doing the work downtown, that's not there's no contract, there's no payment. That's really an alignment on, aligned on some of our goals here. And so for some other parts like the mental health substance use treatment that happens with Grand, Family and Children's, and Creoaks, that is, there's no contract. We're working to, if folks need those services, to enroll them in CCBHC and then align the case management. So it's a little bit of a mix of some contracts, some MOUs, and some aligning of resources, existing services, to make this big spider web to get people housed, keep them housed.
I was also wondering why the YWCA was using private funds instead of the money that was allocated for the programming.
That is a great question. So YWCA.
They already had.
Yeah, they already had those dollars, and it was a contract, that grant, and I won't get like too into the weeds, was to help them start a homeless case management program and a rehousing program. And we were working with YWCA on identifying federal funding to create long-term sustainability, and then HUD didn't issue they did issue that notice of funding opportunity and didn't. And so we worked with YWCA on where's an opportunity to, and that funding was always meant to have other leverage dollars, especially for rent. And so in order for them to sort of achieve some of that grant goal, build their capacity in the space, and to meet a really big need in the community of addressing encampments, we found an opportunity for alignment. So and also it allowed them to start hiring staff and getting started to work fast. And so I think it was just us looking with nonprofit partners of like, where can we bring in additional resources and support? I don't expect that will maybe ever happen again, where you have a nonprofit that has received funding that is expecting a federal match, and then we can just line those up and they can hire 8 staff members in a period of 60 days that had been working in case management for years. So we were trying to really take advantage of a moment with an incredible organization.
I think the timing
just
worked out to our benefit.
Mm-hmm.
So how many of your partners actually have teams that are doing the work?
So Family and Children's Services has 2 staff members that they've actually been supporting on the case management pro bono, and so we've gotten into this contract. Tulsa Day Center is contracted for 6. I don't know if you all are fully staffed up.
Yeah, we need 2 more, but we have 4.
So you're
plus a coordinator.
Plus supervisory staff. So that's in terms of the ongoing case management. I mean, we could get through on some of the rapid exit. We've had some additional staffing that's come there. We've also had staffing like Mental Health Association, staff that was operating Denver House is now co-locating out of Salvation Army. So we're finding opportunities where we can
How many
leverage.
people are on their team, do you know?
The Denver House team, I believe, is 5 folks. They have different purposes and different uses with some of that funding. I know 2 of their staff is really focusing on the rapid exit, and then they're also aligning some of the services that they were doing with Denver House as well. So it's a bit of a mix.
So to follow up with those teams and what partners are actually doing the wraparound services. It's my understanding that Family and Children's has 22 clients, and YWCA has 112 that they are charged with the wraparound services.
That's probably about right. It sounds about right. I could follow back up in terms of the specific caseload assignments. So the folks that are doing the wraparound services are Family and Children's Tulsa Day Center and YWCA. YWCA has the biggest caseload because they were the first case management partner to come on and with 8 staff. in
With
addition
private
to-
funding,
Mhm.
with the private funding. So
With the
they're
private-
doing the 112 with private funding.
Correct. And as we've
And
housed.
so the 22 that are being served by Family and Children's are through Housing Solutions?
Currently, Family and Children's has been providing that on a temporary basis pro bono. They've been able to leverage some existing staff. They wouldn't be able to do that long-term, which is why we're doing a contract, but they've been able to essentially free up some time from some staff to provide the wraparound. So, and then Tulsa Day Center with their current 4 case managers and a coordinator and adding 2. So that's part of this is we've done more encampments, housed more people. We've had to ramp up more partners and more staffing to make sure that we can provide that wraparound for every person.
Okay, so there's
Building the
really not a
capacity.
definitive number that you guys can,
I absolutely could, I just don't have it off the
Okay.
top of my head.
okay. I would also, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, we're I think in the process of building that capacity out and finalizing those contracts with Day Center and Family and Children. So while Family and Children's has just absorbed internally the cost of their personnel doing case management,
The 2 people?
they will now come under Safe Move Tulsa, an official
With the
contract with
contract
Housing
that is
Solutions.
being negotiated right now?
Uh-huh, yeah.
Okay. Okay, and then you mentioned that Creoks was providing daily services?
They're one of the referral partners for the ongoing mental health and substance abuse treatment. So any individual, most of the folks who are coming for encampments are eligible for CCBHC
At the
services.
73rd and Admiral
It doesn't have to be. So-
location? Well, that,
Yeah.
I guess because that was mentioned about what Creoks was doing with the facility.
Oh,
I
so-
think Counselor Dector Wright had asked the question.
Okay.
And you had mentioned that there was outreach and services that people were able to access at that location.
Okay, so this is not Safe Move. We're going back to what Creoks Building is doing now.
Right.
Okay, I just wanted to make
Or
sure,
are you
because
asking
we were
if it
just
could be
talking
part
about
of
Safe
Safe
Move
Move
stuff.
stuff, or, okay, I was just.
Okay.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, so it's not Safe Move. So they're just operating, they have some of their regular clinical offices at that location, and Be Heard will start doing their day services and their outreach as they have done there as well.
Yeah, I'd like to know the numbers that they're dealing with on a daily, because I'm hearing lots and lots of complaints from constituents. And that with the closure of the metro station downtown impending, the possibility of the resources downtown also having to relocate, they're seeing so many more people in the district, especially in the Admiral corridor. And outreach services, getting people out there has been futile. We've had very little response from outreach teams to get out there. And so the prospect of going forward when we don't have information as to how, with the closures, what it's gonna look like for people where resources are applicable. So, I'm confused and a little concerned about what that's gonna look like in the district with the resources downtown slowly being diminished.
They're not being diminished. I guess I
Well,
don't
the
understand
metro
what-
station closing is gonna be really significant if it's sold. And,
I think we just don't know also if there's gonna be a bus stop still proximal, even if it's not in the same
well,
spot.
and I know
So
that
would-
the resources also, there's talk about the soccer field
I
going
think that's
in.
not immediate, I think that's all speculative.
Well, it's still speculative, but I think it's imperative
I
for
don't think that has.
people to understand.
Yeah, I just think,
Okay.
I think other downtown improvements, just stick to winter shelter and
Okay.
safe
Yeah.
move on your agenda item.
Okay. It's concerning to a lot of the constituents about what we're getting in the district and the lack of resources available for them. And I think I only have a couple more questions. How many of the sweeps decommissionings are duplicates?
you mean like the same area or the same people?
The same encampments.
Do you mean as part of the closure
Uh-huh.
maintenance part? So, I think this is this is actually a helpful question. So, when we housed all the long-term sleepers in downtown and, you know, the closure maintenance went into effect, you're saying how many folks are we seeing, like, the same folks every night there? That's a little hard to tell, because the closure maintenance is bringing together, you know, activity that was already happening among private security, city security, law enforcement and outreach teams. So, and a lot of that engagement, you know, if somebody is trespassing on private property, what we're trying to get is that private security person, instead of just moving that person to the next property, they're part of a process here that could offer that person shelter. But we don't get, we don't oftentimes get, like full IDs or the way to like articulate if it's a different individual or if it's the same individual is a little more challenging because of the natures of the partners. And also, you know, if somebody is sleeping on a private property downtown overnight, you know, if we're trying to access somebody to shelter, we're not like fully focused in that moment on, you know, getting and figuring out their identification. We want to get them to the shelter bed, and then that part happens through the intake. So it's hard to say. We know we have had a lot of engagements, especially over the first 4 to 6 weeks. We've seen a lot of engagements, whether that's people sleeping in downtown during the day or overnight. I think we've seen a slight downtick over the last couple of weeks, but we know it will ebb and flow in terms of how many people are sleeping there. I think part of this too is we're seeing, you know, we saw a good uptick with folks going to the day center as that initial point of entry and building some capacity with some other shelters. Our hope here is that as we continue to do this work in shelters, there will be less people sleeping downtown because there's more beds available, you know, for them as we keep going with that turnover. But I can't really say how many folks in terms of like an engagement that happens in the downtown space is duplicate, just because there's so many different private security and other entities that are involved.
Well, I know some encampments have been decommissioned and then people are back. I don't know that they're the same people that are in the same encampment area, but I know that there have been 2-3 times at certain encampments that have had to be decommissioned or swept or whatever.
In the downtown area? I
Mhm.
think this is the tricky part for an encampment. We really think of the place where people have set up a structure. And in downtown, you may have places where someone, like an area where people might sleep, you know, but they're not really setting up an abode. And I know that's a little bit of like our speak versus how members of the public would describe it. But I don't think we've seen too much of people setting up more structures downtown. We do have hotspot areas where people sleep regularly, and so that's an area where, you know, we regularly engage. I do think that in general, and this is more anecdotal, that it is different folks consistently.
Okay, and then do we have an idea of how many people actually refuse services?
I could get that number for you. What we have right now is, so there's a twofold process. There's an offer of shelter, or an individual has to comply, you know, with the ordinance, and so they have to leave the space. And then if they don't, you know, then there's an escalation, and, you know, TPD gets involved, and it's the same way, offering people resource, or, you know, letting them know they have to leave the space. We've had very, very few of those engagements that have involved an arrest or a citation. I can only think of one arrest right now where an individual got aggressive. The number of individuals that go to shelter versus the number of individuals who voluntarily comply, I'll have to get that back to you.
Okay, and also I think it would be good for us as the council to be able to have a map of where the housing is actually happening. We don't know, we don't have to know who the people are being housed, but I think it would be helpful to be able to see where these 134 people have been housed.
Well, I think there's some confidentiality with, because it's now a person's residence, but we can.
I don't want the
they're housed
exact
in-
address, I mean, it would just be nice to have a map as to where.
A heat map?
yeah,
We
where,
can see what we
Yeah.
can do.
What
They're
parts of the
across
city do-
the Tulsa area.
yeah, I don't want names, I don't need
Want
their
specific
yeah,
names,
I'm
yeah.
not gonna send them a card or anything like that. I just think it's
Yeah.
important that we see where the placements are happening.
Like what affordable housing and then access to resources looks like, is that, I could see that being really, that's why
I
I knew that
just-
would be interesting about that
Well,
map
and
to me.
I think it would also be helpful for citizens, for us to advocate for housing solutions, to be able to continue the work if we can get in front of it instead of behind it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think one thing we'll just wanna make sure is that, not putting anyone's safety in jeopardy by,
I get it.
showing where people are
No,
being
I don't,
used, so.
again, I don't need exact addresses.
Yeah, and I think
And
from
then,
the broader perspective too, what we're doing is, we're housing people, I totally understand, want to understand, are we housing everybody in the same neighborhood, or are we truly like reintegrating people into community, all across the community? And I think that's really important. I think the part of this work, we haven't built an apartment complex where we're housing everybody. We're finding units, and we try to find it if that's a place where it's closer to work, or family, or healthcare, or services. We want to be cautious that we try to do that also so that people can reintegrate with community. And sometimes you don't want folks to know what your background is because you're trying to start a new chapter in your life. So, just avoiding,
I get all
numerous
that, I'm not
NIMBYism.
asking for scrutiny. And I think it's fair for us as a council, as a whole, to be able to have that information. Also, one last request that I would like, I think it would be helpful for the council as well, is to have some sort of detailed line itemization of where all this money is going, not just something where it's somewhat vague and is going to lead to more questions, but actually something that as the council that we can actually look at line by line to see who's and where the money's going. That's my final request.
Okay, and then.
Thank you.
One, sorry, I know Councilor Decorated had to step away, but she had one follow-up question she had meant to ask that I just said I would ask real quick, but I would have asked probably anyway, and then I have Councilor Gilbert, which is just, for any of the, and I don't, this could be safe, I think it would be hard to discern this for Safe Move, but I'm curious, can any of the partners get Medicaid reimbursement, or are they, I could understand that Mental Health Association and Creoaks or Grand maybe for substance and mental health treatment can access Medicaid insurer reimbursement, but is that something that's being explored for any other part of the work or through a partner? I'm just thinking about, those other dollar sources.
It's an excellent question, and so this is where mentioning the behavioral health partners, that activity of mental health and substance abuse services, not paid for because that there's an opportunity to enroll folks, and then that those services can be cost through Medicaid. One of the trickiest parts with Medicaid in the state of Oklahoma is that this housing stabilization, which would kind of go beyond healthcare, but helping people achieve housing stability is a social determinant of health and is really important. It is a reimbursable expense in other states. It is not in the state of Oklahoma.
So that would just take a state plan amendment, not even a legislative, partly if we know Medicaid codes that are for it for other states.
Yes, it would require a waiver request that would have to go through the state, and so
Right,
that
like a
has been
spa, yeah.
Yeah, and so that has been something that we've been working on. Quite frankly, we've been working with Healthy Minds on that. And right now, unfortunately, with the State Healthcare Authority, there's not a ton of interest in additional waivers,
Yeah,
but it is
fair.
something that, from a policy perspective, that and it in other states like Illinois and New Hampshire and some other states where those buildings, it doesn't cover all those costs, but and it depends on how the state can implement it, but it's not currently allowable in the state of Oklahoma. It is one of our housing solutions and a broader way home for Tulsa advocacy points that's needed.
Okay.
There is another, if we want to throw out advocacy points here too, Healthy Minds has a lot that it's done is we've really looked at how behavioral health and homeless services intertwine. The costs related to providing behavioral health services for somebody who's unsheltered and really, really acute and has high needs, as my understanding, really just doesn't line up. Like the amount of time and intensive supports don't line up at this point. And so
this is where we have organizations that use uncompensated cost, and they figure out other ways to be able to do things, but that's another area, you know, and I know there've been state funding proposals or conversations with the city on how do we have dedicated resources for some of the folks who have high-intensity needs, but that's something Healthy Minds is also working on.
Okay, that's a good note for all of us for future legislative advocacy, because that, I know that it can be another pathway with Medicaid coverage, so it's kind of easier to do the, like a spa, but, okay, that was from me / Counselor Dr. Wright, and now we have Counselor Gilbert, and then maybe Counselor Lee can have more questions. No, he doesn't, all right, we've been thorough.
All right, so this, I want to go back to the winter shelter. I know that Graham Mental Health, who's on this list as a partner, that they were part of the winter shelter. Is there anybody else who was part of the winter shelter?
Yeah, absolutely. So, are you talking about the facility that was operated on Admiral, or just the general of the winter shelter?
Just the winter shelter in general. I mean, I know Cree Oaks did the one on Admiral.
Mm-hmm.
Mental Health Association helped with the Dream Center West.
Mm-hmm.
Day Center provided capacity at Cree Oaks at times. Day Center Salvation Army John 3 had expanded space. Their emergency shelters.
Iron Gate supported with you know, food and some of the basic items at Tulsa Dream Center. Family and Children's Services provided pro bono staffing, especially during the extreme cold weather at the end of January.
MetroLink provided bus service to shelters and afterwards.
City Lights also brought staff and volunteers to Dream Center. There's a lot of.
YWCA provided some volunteers.
Okay. And I know that the Water Authority also helped with,
provided the restroom, the trailer and shower, or the
Right,
bathroom trailers and the shower trailers.
yeah. I don't see them listed on here.
Oh, this is just Safe Move, and this wasn't winter shelter.
Okay. Was Be Heard was a part of that, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so initially Be Heard was, so Cree Oaks purchased the building at end of some period in 2025. And then Be Heard, you know, also co-located, so initially Be Heard was providing staffing for the shelter, and Cree Oaks was doing some of the behavioral health services and then oversight of the building. And then in about early January, the staffing and operations of the shelter fell under Cree Oaks.
Okay.
And Be Heard took it back.
So the winter shelter is not part of Safe Move?
No.
It was just the city winter shelter?
Mhm.
Okay. There's a lot of confusing because we think that all the homeless programming falls under Safe Move. So thank you for that clarification. I want to go back to what Counselor Bush was talking about in the encampments, not just in downtown, but throughout the city of Tulsa, especially in neighborhoods. How much longer is it going to take to get outreach to those folks?
Yeah, so I think our current capacity right now is you see on.
Yeah, 40?
Yeah, it's about, that's right, right now, our current capacity right now is to be able to, you know, we can address, whether it's one location or multiple, about 40 individuals at a time. And so.
40 a month?
Yes, a month, because an encampment decommissioning process is about 4 weeks.
Yeah, but if you, so it's 40 a month, but most of the, some of the encampments that I've seen, some of the people, especially that I've seen just walking around in groups in my district are anywhere from 2 to 3 max. So, I think it's great work what you guys have done downtown. I don't know how many people are in those encampments of the ones that you guys have worked on downtown and along river parks, but when we talk about, and I know that we've had this discussion before at the table, the work that's being done downtown and at river parks, it's pushing people out of the encampments, and it's pushing it into other neighborhoods throughout the city. So when can you all start focusing on neighborhoods? in other areas besides downtown.
Good question.
So we just closed 3 outside of downtown and are working on.
Where outside of downtown? Were those
Uh,
encampments?
One was at Fowler, behind Fowler on 31st and, is that Sheridan? 32nd and Sheridan. One.
There's still people back there.
Well, it's a long area. We closed a certain portion of it.
I'm very familiar with it.
So so we are working as quickly as possible. The problem, and trying to address some of what Councilor Bush was talking about as well, is some of the movement. So like what she was mentioning is people are showing up at night and then moving during the day, and that creates a different sort of need than when someone is staying in a location.
I get that.
And so that is the process that as we move in to this next phase of work, working on how do we kind of replicate the zone approach from downtown and take it into other areas.
Well, I mean, it just seems like you guys have a good program that you've created and you're doing it downtown. I can say this because I'm not doing it, but I would expect, I mean, it's just like any other program. You do what you're doing in one area, you pick it up and you move it. And you do that same thing in a different area. As Councilor Bush just said, 51st in Harvard, 51st in Lewis, I mean, all those areas, it just seems like, I mean, we know where those hot points are. And they could be encampments. I mean, I'm sure the one that you were just referring to, behind Fowler Ford, yeah, it's been there for quite some time. So, but, I mean, you're getting information today, so, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm having a very difficult time with my words today. I would just hope that you would take what's happening downtown and move it to other areas, because what's happening downtown, all the people that don't want the services or they don't know how to get the help, they're leaving downtown because they're being pushed out because of the enforcement side, but they're going into different areas, especially in neighborhoods, in our parks, and not just downtown or river parks.
Yeah, I think that's our intent, right?
Yep.
Is that, to get to this point where nobody's sleeping outside in any part of our community, and it's gonna take time to get to that scale. Yeah.
Right, and I get that, and I mean, just to what you, Emily, what you were saying to Councilor Bush is that it's a different scope, and you're trying to figure it out. So, but what you're doing downtown, I would just, it's great what you're doing, along with the partners that you have, that I would just think that it wouldn't be as difficult to take that into other areas. So.
We're working on it.
Did you have a Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that, Counselor, that according to the website with their numbers, it looks like downtown people have already, there's like 44, maybe more. And it breaks down if you use their map. I think the one that you're talking about might have had 4 individuals that were.
Is that 71st and Granite at that location?
No, I'm thinking of the recent one.
The 31st and Sheridan,
there are
yeah.
3.
I was
3
pointing
or
out-
4 individuals.
No, there are 3 locations.
There was,
Oh.
so there was
Okay.
8 individuals at 31st and Sheridan.
Okay, yeah, that's what I've got.
Yeah.
The highway patrol went through there
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah, I'm
And
just
so-
saying that I understand your frustration because I'm feeling the same frustration with my constituents, so.
Nomadic problem.
Anyway, that's all I have to say.
Okay. Are there any follow-up inquiries? Okay. Oh, sorry, yes, if you have more to, yeah,
No, I
please.
just want to, as we're wrapping up, just say thank you all for your partnership in this. I think that we are seeing significant progress in a short amount of time. I know it's not happening fast enough, But as we come together under one common goal, I think we can see good that is happening and just hopefully we can continue working together and make greater progress faster. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And with that, we are on agenda item 10. We're adjourned.